had a long distance career. You know, he started in Jersey and then came here.
All right, I will call to order the December 4th, 2019 Morton Borough Council agenda meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone can make a roll call, please.
Mario Semina?
Here.
Michelle Miller?
Yes.
Michelle Roberts? Robert McGrath? Bob Grant?
Here.
John Miller? Charles Lillicraft? Mayor App? Also present, Cecily Ewald, Christian Spina, Sergeant Rosstein, Morton Rutledge Fire Company, Jack Breslin, and junior councilman, Josh Bernstein.
Thank you. Before we go on to our agenda, I just want to call for a moment of silence for anyone that is not aware, and as most of the public is not aware. Morton Rutledge Fire Company lost a member early yesterday, young man, Michael Malinowski, and obviously it's an extremely sad, tragic event, and I just want to give, on behalf of everybody in the borough, sympathies to the company, its members, and the family of Captain Malinowski. And with that, I'll call for a moment of silence. Thank you. Company President Breslin, did you want to say anything at this time? I'm not expecting you to, but if you...
Not at this time. We really don't have a lot of details as of yet. They're currently just, the hospital finally released Mike, and the company is now in the process of escorting him to the funeral home. I don't even know which funeral home at this moment. It sounds like it's going to be local. We weren't sure whether, since he's originally from Gloucester City, New Jersey, we didn't know if they were going to take him there or come out here. So it sounds like it's going to be out here. And as soon as we have the details, we'll definitely get them to you, and so everybody's aware of what's going on. So.
Yeah, and anything that the borough can do to provide support over the next 7 days, and of course we'll share any information on how folks can help Captain Malinowski's family out in this difficult time.
Thank you.
We will go on to public comment on agenda items. If anybody would like to comment on any items that are on the agenda, you can approach the podium now. If you would like to bring up other business before council, we'll take that up during the open discussion period later in the meeting. Seeing no one at this time, we'll move on to agenda topics, starting with the Public Buildings and Infrastructure Committee. Mrs. Miller, please.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Catania isn't here to explain this in more detail, we're going to have a rebid of the contracts that we're looking for, the estimates for the building. Next week, they'll be submitted on the 10th at 10 o'clock. And hopefully these bids will come in the detail we need and be able to answer all the questions and work out so that we can finally start working on the air conditioning and the various plumbing issues and HVAC and electrical things that need to be done. Secondly, I did meet with someone today who does kitchen remodeling specifically to give us an estimate on some things that need to be done in the kitchen. He'll have those numbers for me on Friday. work them into the budget a bit, hopefully, and do the one-time upgrading of the kitchen, which of course has not been done in a very, very long time. And once this is done, hopefully will not need to be done for a very long time. And be very happy about getting that done. And when he's done, hopefully he'll come to my house and do the same thing, but that's a whole other story. But other than that, that's really all that's going on with building and public buildings and infrastructure, except that I am hoping that Mr. Catania next week can perhaps give us some numbers about some infrastructure, things that need to be done below the small bridges here at Alpha and at Sycamore. There's along the creek line, there's a number of things that need to be done. The estimates have been $12,000 for one, $17,000 for the other. They don't need to be done right away. They don't need to be done all at once, but something that we can work on getting done. And unfortunately, that's taxpayers' money spent that you don't see it, but it needs to be done. So have those numbers and maybe get a little bit of that done this coming year and keep working on it, and just some upgrading and things about erosion and so on and so forth. Other than that, that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions about anything.
All right, so yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry what we want to do with the rebidding. Unless there's any questions on that. And we'll look for a further update on any budget changes with the building items next week. With that, we'll go on to Finance and Administration. Mr. Lillycraft, please.
Mr. President, 2020 tax anticipation, though, you mean you're just accepting, they're still coming in?
They'll be in on Friday.
They'll be in on
The deadline is Friday, and it looks like we'll at least be getting 3 in this year, which is very good.
Okay.
Confirmation on 3, so yes.
And we have a letter of resignation from the tax collector effective 12/31/2019. You have the preliminary budget. I hope everybody has that. If you review that, any questions, call or email Mr. Poole. If any of you think after reading that we need another meeting, which would be fine with me, maybe it might be a good idea, just let Mr. Poole know and we'll set something up. Also received a letter of resignation from Mrs. Young, unexpectedly. I mean, there was a family couldn't accommodate her family as far as the housing was concerned here in the Morton for whatever they intended to do and moving out of where they were, so they had to move elsewhere, and that's effective immediately. I just wanted to thank Chief Ospina. This is public safety, is the next item. My wife received a call, and I guess it threw into a frame of mind. She thought it was legitimate, it was a scam. And the chief came out and settled her down, talked to her, and got the information from her. And she was very, 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 very glad you did that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lillicrop. She did a fantastic job, too, not giving any information out and doing exactly what she was supposed to do.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, so I think I will refer to Solicitor Ewald, but I believe we need to take action. It would be prudent to take action at this time on both resignation letters, I believe.
Yeah, your tax collector resignation, at a minimum, you're going to need to advertise and conduct interviews of any potential appointees. Next week is your last official meeting before the end of the year, and as you know, taxes are go out in the very beginning of the year. So in order to have someone appointed and have time for them to meet up with the current tax collector and get familiar with the requirements, I would suggest that you have that appointment done as soon as possible. So at this point, at a minimum, you should be advertising and setting a schedule for interviews, and if possible, I would recommend having that appointment made next week.
So, Mr. Lillycrop, what do you think about calling for advertising for letters of interest by, say, close of business Tuesday, and then if council wishes to interview, I don't know if council members are available immediately before the meeting next Wednesday.
I can do it.
Me too.
Is that is there any regulated time frame that we have to have something outstanding like that?
So it's the same as any other resignation. You are required to accept the resignation within 45 days of the date that it is tendered. I don't know the date that it was tendered, or the day that is the last date. I'm sorry, and then the clock starts on appointing someone from the date that you accept it or the date that it's effective, whichever is later. In this case, if you accepted it this month, you're already in a situation where the resignation effective date is later. But if you were to wait until February, then frankly, it would become the obligation of the Borough Council to collect the taxes.
Well, I'm not trying to wait until any, I just
No,
guess we'd have official motion to accept the resignations tonight, or that would be next week.
You could do it either way.
Either way, okay?
But if you feel more comfortable.
Well, it doesn't change anything in the timeline, so I would suggest we do it tonight and make it effective with the date on the letter, which is December 31st, correct?
Her letter was
On the
due
one,
November 1st.
November 30th on the
The
other.
31st was when she,
Due by the 31st of December.
The resignation would take effect the 31st of December.
December, yeah.
So whether we accept it this week or next week doesn't
Doesn't
change.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to,
Taxes
so
go out February.
Mrs. Young's resignation be effective November 30th?
Yes.
Or this is tax collector, this is
Yes.
Mrs. Neal.
Yeah, let's do them, let's
Want to do one at a time?
do them one at a
Yeah.
time.
I make a motion to accept the tax collector letter, letter of resignation.
Effective,
It's effective December 31st, 2019.
we have to
Okay,
specify.
I'll amend my motion to, make a motion to accept the tax collector's letter of resignation effective 12/31/2019.
Okay, thank you. So is there a second for that motion? All right. Are there any questions on that motion? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any noes? All right, that motion carries with regret. We, have been served well by Mrs. Neal, I think, the last 2 years, and, we appreciate her service. So then I'll, turn it back to Mr. Lillycrop and Mr. Ewald to determine how we'll move forward in vetting a replacement.
Can we address the other resignation first, or do you want to just take this matter out to its extent? What do you want to do?
Well, I think the suggestion that I've heard from council is that it be advertised that the tax collector position is subject to a vacancy, and that it be requested that interested persons submit applications by Tuesday, which is December 14th.
can I make a suggestion? Just looking at the calendar, and this was gonna come up later anyway, we're gonna have to schedule for the final budget adoption, which will be probably 26th, 27th, or 30th. You could extend your time period to accept any kind of, whatever you want to do. I mean, extend that a period of time, and council then would have probably a week to set up the interviews, and then an appointment could be made at that meeting. And it would still be before the end of the month. Because the idea is, and just to let you know, the tax collector's indicated to us that she will be around to help and assist in any way for that new person. In fact, that's why she wants to get somebody on board as soon as possible, so that there's not a gap. She wants, but at least that would give time to get the information out there and to get things back. So that's why I say, instead of making it, Tuesday of next week, maybe even Friday of next week, to give it a couple more days and then council could set something up for interviews the following week, and then the appointment could be made at that special meeting for the budget. We could also add on there, and the appointment of the new tax collector. So at least give time rather than rushing everything through in a 3-day period or whatever, a 4-day period.
Gives us another week or something.
Well, at least, yeah, I mean, at least to interview and bring people in, to look what's there and then bring people in, right.
Yeah, I mean, Mike,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I just wanted to say, we certainly wanted, which I'm thinking what you're saying, Mr. Poulos, is a fine idea. I just obviously want to reiterate the fact that the person knowing they're going to be tax collector would probably be anxious to get on it as soon as they could, considering, the timeliness of it.
But we also want to make sure that we get the proper candidate that's.
Oh, no, I
ready
totally
for
agree with it.
right.
I think that's going to be fine, that idea.
I mean, given the fact that, Mr. Pools confirmed that the existing tax collector will remain available to assist with the transfer, I would be, a little bit more comfortable with, that
Time frame.
lesser lead time.
And just to let you know, we will be available too in the office for any new person, obviously, and I do have a background in tax, so it's not anything new to me. So, so I think we're in a good place as long as we can get somebody by the end of the month, but I don't want to rush it just to rush it,
No, I mean, this is the prerogative of council.
All right, does anybody, I mean, I'm okay with Mr. Pools' timeline. Does anybody else? have
Yeah,
any
that's fine
concerns?
with me. Okay, you want the motion to advertise immediately and
except by the 13th, any kind of letter of intent.
you're to receive resumes and application by when?
13th, Friday the 13th.
Okay, applications and resumes will be received by the office on or before December 13th, 2019.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any noes?
Did we, I'm sorry, Mr. McGrath said something to me. What did we just vote on? Was it about Mrs. Young or the tax collector?
Tax collector.
Advertise the tax.
Right, okay, good.
Do you wish to record a vote?
Yeah, it's fine.
thought you
It's fine.
You're voting aye.
I am voting aye.
Okay. All right,
We
motion
moved it from the
carries.
10th to the 13th. Got it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to accept Mrs. Natalie Young's letter of resignation effective 11/30/2019.
I will second that, but I would like to make a statement first about Natalie. I probably knew her best of anyone. We met at the train several years ago when she first got out of law school. And she showed up here, she showed up one evening at a Democratic meeting. She's actually a very shy person, even though she's very smart and appears to be outgoing. Took her a little bit of time to agree to run, and when she got elected, she was a little overwhelmed by it. Her job very much supported her on this. They're rather politically active people. It's a real loss for all of us, for she and Andy and Oliver to move out of our community. Always count on her. This woman worked full-time, had a 4-year-old, went to Center City, did all of this. She worked with suicide prevention and all sorts of other programs. A real loss for Morton. Wish them well and hope that after her new baby is born, that maybe we can get them back here. Maybe we can find a house that they can buy and move back into Morton. It's a real shame for us, and I of course wish her well. And we'll miss all three of them very much. And with that said, I will second Mr. Lillycraft's proposal to accept her resignation.
All right.
Unfortunately, on this one, you don't really have any choice because she is removed from the municipality. She's no longer eligible to be
Right.
a council member. So, but yes, it is a loss to council.
So the motion is made and seconded. I will just concur with everything that Mrs. Miller said. And Mr. Ewald, I know he's worked closely with Mrs. Young with law and ordinance, and she really, fell right into that role, being an attorney herself, but worked on a lot of other, things for the betterment of the community. So I will make sure to reach out and let her know how much that's appreciated and how much we wish her well going forward. Any other comments or questions on the motion?
Well, I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm really proud of her too. And I'm really pleased that she was here. She stepped up to the plate and did a lot for us in that short time she was on council.
And I said it was exactly. Everything was well said about her. She was well versed.
All right, thank you.
She stepped right up to the plate and did a fine job. We'll all miss her.
All right, if there's no other comments or questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Motion carries again with regret. Yeah, so Mr. Ewald, if you can review the timeline that sets up.
So you have only 30 days to appoint a successor under the code. So at this point, you'd want to advertise for a replacement and be prepared to make an appointment this month. If you're comfortable using the same time frame as you are with the tax collector, then that probably makes the advertising easy.
How much time is left on her position?
Her term?
2 years,
2 years.
from January.
Yes, so this would be an appointment to fill the unfinished term, which would be 2 years from now till January of 2022.
It would be good if we could, schedule it around, so that the period for swearing in would fall in line with the other newly elected, re-elected officials.
But the 30 days would be expired by then.
Yeah.
Today's the
Well, we'd have to appoint, but then they have 10 days to be sworn in, correct?
Oh, yeah, you can. So, you're going to be required to have your meeting on January 6th. So it would have to be December 27th or later. If you, otherwise you can just have the mayor swear her in or him, whoever it is.
True. All right, so we basically, I would suggest we do the same schedule to advertise, Mr. Lillycrop. Ask for qualifications, letters of interest by next Friday. Does that make sense?
Fine.
And
Need a motion?
then presumably the only opportunity to appoint would be at the budget adoption meeting, correct?
Yes.
Unless we had another special meeting, which I don't think we're going to do.
Right.
So, but I assume we're going to set the date for the budget adoption meeting at next week's meeting.
Correct.
So we should just figure on the logistics for the, not that we can't have the mayor swear beforehand, but. All right, so we're looking for a motion, correct?
Sure. A motion to advertise the position council person with the deadline of December 13th. That's what you'd be looking for.
So we're making a motion we're going to advertise in the resumes and applications for the council position to be received by the borough on or before the 13th. Is that what it is? The 14th, 13th?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Lillycrop, then I just wanted to, I don't think we need to get into a full discussion of the preliminary budget unless, are you suggesting that we consider another meeting before the adoption of the preliminary budget? Another budget meeting?
Well, if, after they review it, you know, rather than come to preliminary budget meeting and say, okay, I want to make a lot of changes, that would be a problem. Now, if after, you know, going over it carefully, they say, I'm sorry, I got to sit down before we get to preliminary, because, you know, have some issues that I think should be changed.
You do have to remember that any changes have to be made pretty quickly, because at this point, you're gonna have to approve the preliminary budget. It's gonna have to remain unchanged and available for inspection for 10 days before you can before you can make any changes. So
This was their first shot at a full preliminary budget, and that's the reason for my comments.
right, I'm just trying to make sure that we consider that, you know, the next meeting is December 11th. If you approved it and advertised it on December 12th, then you have to, you wouldn't be able to do anything until December 23rd. So, you know, you don't want to go into the 15th of December and then, you know, and then you have no time. So, you know, if you're going to have an additional meeting after next Wednesday, it would have to be like next Thursday or next Friday, because if you get into the following
Between
week,
now
it's
and
too
next
late.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
thought Mr.
Okay,
Walker
I'm
was
sorry.
suggesting.
You mean in the interim, as long as you meet the deadlines, it's fine.
So what's the soonest we can have it based on the fact that we have to advertise? We have to advertise it, right?
You could vote to advertise it today. I mean, but that's too. I don't know. Have you seen it yet?
What's that?
Do they have it yet?
No, not
Yeah.
the meeting, I think.
Well, I have enough to talk about at a meeting, so I can already, I'm prepared to request one.
Well, to back up, basically the option we have is either to vet all these things tonight. I'm not sure if everybody's prepared to do that, or I would concur with Mr. Lillicraft. We need to set up a meeting
Well, I
before we
think-
adopt a preliminary.
Well, I think
Well, I
at this
guess
point in time.
My question is, why does it have, you can always adopt the preliminary as is
Yes.
and have your meeting anytime, either before or after that. And as long as you come up with those changes, as Carl said, if you've advertised it for those 10 days, you can make those changes before the final is approved. So, I mean, you're not stuck by doing it before next Wednesday. You could always approve the preliminary as it is right now with the proviso, yes, we're going to meet again and go over things and make changes, or, you know, assuming we will make changes before the final.
But we can't discuss those changes until it's set open for 10 days.
No, you
correct?
can't, you can't change the document. You can make any, you can talk about any kind of changes in the interim. It's just you can't change the document. So that preliminary has to be available for the public to review for 10 days without any changes. But you can discuss changes and what you want to do with it. In fact, a lot of communities encourage that. Once it's out, they have public meetings again so that people come in to discuss those things again. So,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I think at this point in time, though, council people would have to get their comments to the borough manager so that when we sit down, we're not looking at something that would be coming out of the blue.
Well, I'll say for myself, I don't like the idea. My preference wouldn't be to not vote on the preliminary budget as it stands unless unless no presumption's been made on the revenue side. As I understand it, and I believe we've done this in the past, preliminary budget does not have to be balanced. Am I correct about that?
No.
No, it has to be balanced.
The preliminary doesn't.
Well,
yeah, I mean, your budget has to be balanced.
you get the
I mean,
preliminary,
whatever you're
otherwise,
presenting
it
has to be
has
balanced.
We have to
You have to show it as being balanced, because otherwise, that's what it is. If you presented the preliminary and you were $50,000 off, you could do anything in the interim to change that. And what it is, it has to be something that is a zero balanced budget, because that tells people what you have planned to do.
Right, but if, yeah,
We have to-
basically, if it were not balanced, you'd be showing an increase in taxes, you know, to make it balanced.
Well, we have to presume, I think, going into this, obviously, that there's a chance that nothing will be done with the budget, right? So that, if that's the case, then we have to present a budget that would be effectively a finished budget. We'd have to approve a preliminary budget that would be effective, that could be effective as a budget. if no changes were made.
Okay, you're saying if you get preliminary budget and everybody says that's fine, that would be the final budget then?
Yeah,
Right.
but if we present a budget that isn't exactly right, then we've got to go change it anyway. Then we know we've got to change it, whereas that doesn't, yeah.
And you're always afforded that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Well, look, I'll put my cards on the table. I am concerned, that we need to, I'm not comfortable, what is the Rose millage increase?
761.
761. I am not comfortable with that millage increase in a single year. And as I understand it, that is assuming the full, a full year's cost of an additional police officer, which we pretty much know is not going to be the case.
Correct.
So that's really what I was hoping to drill down to is what, what that, the most likely defensible number is. And then there's, I think there's probably going to be some discussion brought up on a few other line items, as to whether we can find some cost savings elsewhere to offset this. And then the one other thing that jumped out at me, Mr. Poole, you can point me in the right direction if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find the recycling grant revenue.
Which you mean just the regular performance grant?
Yeah. So that would offset it by another $6,000 or so.
Yeah, I'd have to check, yeah, because that's a normal item there.
And
It's usually about
Mr.
600,
Poole,
700.
Mr. Poole, you told me that the mill is about $118,000.
What's that?
A mill is about $118,000?
Yeah, I'll give you the exact, let me find it here.
This estimate of $45 is always what I was.
Well, $45 for every 60,000.
I know, so.
If your house is assessed at more than that, then it'd be more money.
Yeah, mill for next year will be $119,881.
119, I'm sorry?
119,881.
So it went up a little
Almost
bit.
Little bit,
almost
okay,
120,000, not
300,000.
118.
Yeah, it was like
Okay.
300,000 from last year.
Well, the concern is, we have to pass a preliminary budget next week or the whole timeline goes off the rails. And, that's why I'm putting my cards on the table, because there are the things that I pointed out, I would like to see amendments made before I would vote thumbs up on this preliminary budget, and I don't know whether, others do or don't have any concerns, but my concern is, are we going to have the votes to pass a preliminary budget next week? We're, well, the fact that we're down one person really doesn't matter, but I can break a tie.
It does
but-
matter.
If a preliminary
Well, it
budget,
does matter, because that's what it is, because the mayor would have to be the one then.
Yeah, it would just,
Right.
it would require the mayor to
Right.
weigh in.
what's the time frame after you approve the preliminary to make changes? 10 days, is that what you said?
No, all it is, the law requires that the preliminary budget be advertised for 10 days for public inspection.
Okay.
But within that time, you can do anything with it.
You have to wait to 10 days of,
The idea is that
Advertising.
whatever you adopt has to be available for the public. You can't then, after you've adopted the preliminary, say,
Can't
oh,
do
we're going to
anything.
change this item, this. You can talk about doing that, but after the 10 days, that can be put in there and readjusted. And then the final is then presented as that new document.
So if we approved it tonight, and then we had a meeting somewhere
Well,
in here.
it'd still be next week. You
And then
do
we
the
would come
preliminary
back.
next week.
yes.
And
Right.
And I mean, you can even do it just because I've had that happen before. You can do it just as you've spoken about. that you have reservations about the preliminary as it's presented right now. We're going to meet, we're going to go over these items, and then we're going to come back hopefully with a readjusted final with whatever we can, change.
And then we have 10 days from there.
No,
Oh,
it's just a 10-day period from the
over that
preliminary.
10 days.
But you can change the preliminary,
Okay.
right, after that 10-day
Does that run
inspection.
into Christmas?
What's that?
10-day period, that run into Christmas?
Well, it's going to be around Christmas, depending on what, even just adopting the preliminary next week is going to do that, right?
So it'll take us to the 21st.
And you got 24,
Right.
so.
Well, my understanding, it's business days. So it's the
Okay.
idea we're talking about, like I said, it would be, 26th, 27th, or 30th? Which is exactly, just to let you know, this is exactly what went on last year, too. I think it was adopted on the 27th, I think it was. So, right.
So it really just be a practical thing to approve it tonight, so we could.
Well, it'll be next week, so you still have a week to get comments. And if you want to move it along, even though you are opposed to something in it, you can accept the preliminary and say, I am opposed to this, or I would like to change this, and that's why we're going to meet to go over these things. But when it comes to the final presentation, right, if that item is still in there that you don't like, then you just don't vote on it. You said you vote no.
Okay, so.
That's what I'm saying. I've had that happen, where there are several issues that have been out there that have not been resolved by the time the preliminary comes around. So what they do is, based on what the preliminary is at that point in time, they adopt it. But, and I don't want to say with reservations, but I guess that's the term, it would be with the idea, I'm voting yes, but I would like to, and we are going to meet next week to go over these things, So that's what I'm saying is, you could still get over that hurdle, because the preliminary is not the final. You still have a chance to change it.
The preliminary is a rough draft.
What's that?
The preliminary is a
Correct.
draft.
Correct.
Rough is a little bit, it's more
And
than a
again,
rough draft.
that's why that 10-day is afforded the public, because the idea is you're saying, this is our draft. If the public is opposed to it and wants to express it, that gives them that period to do that by looking at what you have preliminarily and saying, we don't like that and we'd like you to take that out of there or put this in or do whatever, so.
All right, so tonight's motion is that to
We won't do it
advertise?
tonight.
No, there's nothing tonight.
I want to ask this question.
Sure.
And because of the constraints of time, can we approve the preliminary tonight?
I think, why wouldn't they legally be able to?
No, I said, yeah.
Yeah, I think they can.
Yeah, there's no requirement for you with the preliminary to advertise or do anything
But that
else.
would give us more time.
Yeah,
Right,
that gets us going.
it would
be- yeah.
You vote to advertise it, tomorrow we send an advertisement over to the Daily Times, and on Friday, they'll print it. And then you have 10 days from Friday for it to be, where it has to stay unchanged, and then on the 11th day, and to be clear, the Borough Code says, after the expiration of 10 days, council shall make the revisions in the budget as deemed advisable. So it's 100% contemplated that the preliminary budget will change from, after that 10 days to a budget that is actually approved.
And to let you know, most of that has to do with the idea, just what you're talking about, is that there's usually too high of a fee, too high of a tax, too high, where they're still considering that, but it gives them that leverage then to move ahead at least at that point, so. But adopting it tonight would actually give you a week's more time to do whatever you need to do. Right.
So it would be prudent to see, if we have, obviously, I think we're going through
Okay, I'd like to
have a
make-
meeting next week sometime.
I'd like to make-
Whenever, that's what it is, to give you the time to go over it yourselves, to take a look at it, to come up with your questions and your,
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the preliminary 2020 budget tonight.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
All right.
Back to you, Mr. President.
But just as a question regarding the motion, I'm referring to what Mr. McGrath just said. It negates what Mr. McGrath just said, because we cannot have a meeting regarding the budget next week.
Yes, you can.
We can
You
have-
just can't change the document.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we could have a
You could
meeting.
meet 10 times before you actually adopt the final, or I should say, within that 10-day period, you could meet as many times as you wanted, but you just cannot change that document until after that 10-day period.
Yeah, and I would see the scenario where we would have a meeting, hammer it out, come up with the numbers that we're going to end up putting in the budget when we approve it. We just can't actually put them in until that day.
And then the same proviso holds true for that. If you're still opposed to whatever is in there, you can then vote no at the final, right? You still got, and that is then what becomes or does not become the actual budget.
And so, on the 11th day, then the residents, it's too late for the residents to come in and say anything.
No.
No.
No, I mean, you have to
So-
adopt it at a public hearing, so you
You
have
say
to
it at
have
the
public,
meeting.
you have to have, yeah, you have to have public comment before you can adopt it.
Right,
Okay,
and that's
so
why
that-
you have to advertise the
Right.
final, because
So
that's it.
that-
You give that 10-day period, and then you say we're going to adopt it on this date with public comment available at that meeting.
Okay, so we still have the option, or the ability to take anything that a resident would have at the
You always
meeting,
have,
and then
every
discuss
year.
it again before actually voting on it.
You had every year, yeah.
At that meeting. Okay.
And then
I don't even understand this.
All right, and can we specify the revenue and expense amounts in the proposed budget, subject to that the motion is regarding?
Why?
Because I want it on the record.
No?
Well, respectfully, Mr. President, your preliminary budget, if you want to comment, it's subject to, it being reviewed after the time frame of 10 days for which it could be changed for whatever you want to change it for.
All right, well, as long as I'm clear what I'm voting on, as long as everybody else is clear what they're voting on. All right, are there any other questions on the motion? All right, hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Okay, Mario Semino,
No.
Michelle Miller.
You're voting, Mario, you're voting no against accepting the preliminary? Is that what I just understood?
Yes, that's, I
Voted no.
said
Okay, okay,
before that.
I say
that's
yes.
How is my vote?
Okay, Michelle Roberts,
Yes.
Robert McGrath,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Charlie Lillycrap.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, motion carries, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Woodcraft, is there any other business, or does anyone have any further questions on the schedule of budget hearings, and is there any other finance administration business?
I would like to know if we can discuss when we might have a meeting next week. Since we're all here to discuss it when we're
That's
available.
probably a good idea.
I can make it any night. We have a meeting, obviously meeting on Wednesday.
What do you want, Monday?
Is Monday good?
Monday's good.
Yeah, Monday.
Monday, 7 PM?
This is the 9th.
What's that date, Mr. Poole?
the night.
Night.
Okay.
But as Mr. Lillycrap suggested, what I would do is, if you have a thought, if you have an idea, whatever, write it down. Because at that meeting, you don't want to be going through 3 or 4 hours, because the idea is you have to have a concise idea of what you're questioning, want to know about, whatever, because it's got to be done in a timely manner, only because we've got to decide how we want to go, and then all those numbers have to be changed. So you don't want it to be like your normal budget meeting, I hate to say that, where ideas are just being thrown out left and right, and you're kind of going, if you can have, or come prepared to that meeting, or even beforehand, get a document in that says, here are my concerns. At least those will be the items that we can discuss that night, to make sure that everybody's clear on, what they want to know, and then gets to hear what everybody else has to say.
I have something that's tangential that's related to it. Should I bring it up now?
What is it?
Wait,
While we're in this.
is this about scheduling the meeting or another piece?
No,
of it?
it's actually about a line item, but.
I don't think we should do that.
Well, no, let me finish, and then you can tell me whether or not.
Well, first of all, are we agreed on the 9th, Monday the 9th at 7 PM for the
Yes.
special budget meeting? All right. So we'll schedule that and advertise that. Now, Mr. McGrath, what?
No, the
what
reason
is-
I wanted to bring this up is because it might have a bearing on next week's meeting, although I'm not exactly sure about this. But I just want to say that there's basically it has to do with there's some money left over because we didn't have Morton Day. And because of that, I wanted to discuss with council the ability of possibly transferring that money spending some of that money, which would have a negative effect on the budget from the point of view that it would reduce the budget, because it would be taking some of the money that was in this budget and spending it this year instead of next year, because we have the money and we wouldn't have to retax for it. And I can explain it to you, but that's why I want to bring it up now, because I'm pretty sure that we would have to vote to make the transfer. This is a 2019 thing, this isn't a 2020.
Say, unused funds in whatever line item, you want the authority to transfer that to 2020.
No, what he's saying is current budget. What he wants to do is an item for one line item he wants to use against another line item. So it would still have to be council approving that. The idea is he had a project here that's not being completed. Can he use 2019 money for funding for this project over on this by the end of this year?
Okay, that was in the same committee? Is it recreation?
Yes, it is.
Is it recreation to recreation?
No, it's in
Community development.
Community development. I can explain it to you if you're interested. I mean, like I say, I believe that we'll have to vote on it by next week, which is why
Well, no, what you'd want to do is I would bring it up at the meeting next Monday night.
Well, as long as we don't have to vote on it. Oh, yeah, we can do that.
And
Yeah,
then
we can,
you
that's
can
fine.
vote.
I just wanted to make sure we could do it, you
That's
know.
part of it.
I just wanted to do it in case we had to vote on it next week. I just wanted to get you to do it, so I can explain it later. That's fine with me. Okay.
But also, that reminds me, I believe certain committee chairs had indicated that they had funds that they wished to carry over in a sinking
And
fund.
that's
for
usually
next
the
year.
final meeting. That's the final budget.
At the final budget. All right.
Those are
We're
when
not
we
gonna
make
take
those
that up
considerations.
next week.
I mean, that's-
All right.
yeah.
Mr. Woodcroft, did you have anything else?
That's all, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Public safety, Mr. Miller, please.
Good evening. The only thing I really, well, right off the top, once again, my condolences to the fire department on that tragic incident that happened. That's devastating, especially a family of 5 kids. I can't even imagine. I received a email from Jen Meckel and as part of the Morton Rutledge Fire Company on Act 172. It was the tax credit that we enacted in 2017. At the time we adopted it, Rutledge had an opportunity at the time to do it, and they opted not to. From what I understand now, they're interested to find out about it, the ins and outs of it. They've been in contact with you, Carl?
They've been in contact with Mr. Poor, and he forwarded the information to me.
Okay.
Right, so that's why I forwarded it along to you too, because that's all she was doing, was wanting to know if she could meet with either the committee or council, and I figured it was best to probably start
Right.
with the committee.
Right. I have her number, and I will try to set something up. Carl, should you be in on I just want to cut, just to set the date up, and everybody's available.
Yeah, I think the proposal was for just the committee to meet. If you want me to be there, I'm happy to be there.
Because they are asking us about lifetime members, and that's not even...
Yeah, it wasn't clear.
That wasn't part of the package.
Yeah, so we'll have to, I mean, I'm happy to sit in on the meeting with it.
Okay, if I can set something up, and Mr. Poole, if you're available, and the mayor, and Mario, to get together with their committee and to discuss what the Act 172 is all about. I guess I will be in contact once I talk with them, Jen, and I guess the fire.
Basically, let me just explain real quick. What Rutledge came to us and said, basically the resolution that has to be passed yearly, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Poole, is that correct?
No.
Okay, you
It can
can
be
do it
amended.
one time, and it's good till you change it.
As the solicitor said, right, it can be amended if there's.
Okay.
You're right, but, right.
The way Morton accepted it was, they did an overall 33% of activity, which is very restrictive on some personnel. What they asked us, what we recommended, and basically, and that's why we presented you with the new copies of the bylaws a couple months ago, is what our standards for what an active member is. Whether they're life members, whether they're a firefighter, whether it's an associate member, they have to attend X amount of functions. You know, our life members, they've done their time. They've did 20 years of service. You know, it's time for them to wind down a little bit, but they still need to be involved. Not so much as a younger gentleman, but we want to keep them active, keep their experience going. So we broke down those requirements for everybody in the company that you have to attend X amount of functions, meetings, so on and so forth. And what they did is they're looking to adopt basically the same thing that you stated in yours, 33%, only theirs is staying by the fire company standard and listing our section of bylaws that's requiring what a voting member and is considered as an active member eligible in the company. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah.
I think so. So basically, they would be suggesting to us that we consider amending our policy.
That's
in
what
line
they're
with
recommending,
what they're
that basically both boroughs adopt the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's what I proposed them for, or what you guys already have in place, or as you both get together and decide something different. But what I recommended to them and what they put on paper is what they sent us. And that's what we're recommending is the fire company. Yeah, and then it's up to you guys as councils to, they're just looking that both councils are saying the same thing. That's really what they're trying to do.
That's what it is now, right? We both have the same ordinance.
No, they
You have the same ordinance, but it's
They
the,
don't have it.
they have the ordinance, they don't have the resolution listing the requirements.
I mean, no, but up to now, though.
So what standard have they been using?
Yeah.
They haven't used anything because they never adopted the resolution.
So none of their residents are getting the benefit.
Correct.
No.
So,
So that's why they put this together right now.
right.
They have the ordinance set in place, authorizing it, they just never set the resolution standard as to what the fire company members had to meet to be eligible.
Was that due to the fire department or was that due to their council?
That was due to their council. They did half the work and then stopped.
Did
And
they,
I think what happened is at that time they changed councils. So,
Fell through the cracks.
Well, it doesn't state in the ordinance that the member has to be an active member to the fire department, not just someone, it doesn't state, well, it does state that they have to be a viable volunteer fireman.
correct.
To qualify for it and live in the jurisdiction
Mhm.
to qualify for the tax break.
Correct.
Own the house.
are they too late already for 2020?
Yeah. For 2019. This is actually for next year.
Right, but like for our members, you've already had to send in your certified list.
They should have, yes, we should have, they were instructed to put it together and have it to council.
Right, I think December 1's the deadline or something. So this would, like, we'd be talking about it 2021.
Yeah.
for our members.
Well, it would be 2020.
When we would stay.
The change is for 2020, for the year of 2020. 2019 is the standard that's set now.
Right, but that list was already certified and sent over to the borough.
Have you received that?
We've not gotten anything, because you had mentioned it last week, or last month's meeting. And again, we were, told that we would get it, but we've not gotten it.
Okay.
So if they want, I mean, if anybody's gonna get their credit for 2020, you're gonna have to send a list based on the existing criteria, is what I'm
Right.
understanding.
And members in Morton.
Otherwise,
Right.
everybody's
Right.
gonna miss out.
Right.
So that has to
But we
be,
can't make changes until the following year, you're saying? Because we're already past the,
I mean, I'll have to take a look at the act. We set it up to follow the act, and we did it 2 years ago, so I don't have the details of the act on my brain anymore.
And just to let you know, the criteria that was established did come from the fire company. At that time, that's what they were requesting us to do. Because it was given to them to say, what do you think would be the best, so. No, I know, but that's,
There was an issue there.
no, that's why I wanted
What
to
the
get.
company said and the person that relayed it to council changed it. So, but, and again, I mean, we've never argued that. I mean, it was what it was, and we were accepting that. But when Rutledge came to us a couple weeks ago and said, hey, how would you like to see this worded? What you now have is what we recommended. So, and that's why they want to meet with you to set the
I would
standard.
try to set up a meeting. Being that it's going to be 2020, there's nothing that's saying that this
Is there
has to
issues
be.
in what has been presented that you want changed? Is that the idea? What they have presented to you for review, is there issues in there you want changed?
Well, yes.
There is.
All it is, they wanted to come to discuss, and that's the idea, is because they're setting up their criteria, but they wanted to make it, since it's Morton Rutledge Fire Company, they wanted to see if we would be agreeable to change ours to what they're proposing. So this is the initial, where they're coming to say, this is what we
They
are
gave you
proposing.
what they proposed. Is that the idea?
No, there's really not, I mean, there's,
No,
I
we
don't know
haven't
what the one
discussed
item was,
anything
but-
with them
right.
yet.
But it sounds like if the change is strictly that it is to the new criteria formulated by the fire company, and if Morton Borough Council doesn't have a problem with that, I don't know that you need to have a meeting.
Well,
So
but
we should look
she
at-
had requested, that's why she said, she just wanted to sit down to go over everything before
Yeah, but now
anything
we've
was
got the
presented to
solicitor
either
involved,
board.
and this is getting to be an expensive
Well,
meeting.
all it was, that's what, tonight was supposed to be, just the committee was going to meet with them.
All right.
And then bring something forward to council.
Right.
Right.
Well, I will contact her, and if it's just
Public Safety Committee.
the committee, then that's what we'll do. And we'll come back with it. There's nothing that can be done by the end of the year anyhow.
Right.
So,
On either side, right?
okay, so that's all I have.
Okay. Community and economic development. For some reason, no matter how many times I keep trying to say that, I can't get it out right.
thank you very
Mr. McGrath, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to get into this because we already discussed that we're going to bring, it's just that I just want to shift around how we pay for the equipment that, oh, excuse me, you're right, I did see that. Let me just finish what I'm saying. The other thing we'll talk about on Monday night, okay. Now, number 1.1. 2020 CDBG notification.
Excuse me.
Mr. Poole, would you have any information on this?
Yeah, just to let you know, it's that time of year again for the CDBG application. As you are probably aware, we were informed during this past year that we, as a community, will no longer be eligible according to federal guidelines for CDBG funding for most eligible projects. Because we have,
that. When did we find this out?
oh, Bernice actually told us.
She did?
Yeah. She told us early on in the process because they were changing the guidelines and she felt that we weren't going to be good, which we're not. I mean, we're very close. We're percentage-wise, we're very close, but we've fallen out of that category, which several communities in Delaware County have.
Is that related to the census?
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. That's exactly what it is. So we have 2 census tracts. One census tract has always been one way. Now both fall outside of that criteria.
But
So
there hasn't been a census yet.
no, but what they do is they update it with whatever they call it. Every 2 years since. I think the last one was like 2017 when they did some kind of.
That's basically income?
Yes. So the criteria is low and moderate income. There has to be, it was like 48 point some %, and we've just fallen out of that. So, but for us, what it does is it opens up probably an opportunity that we've tried to do in the past, and we've been, I guess, we've been lucky because the last 2 years we've gotten 2 very nice projects that we are currently working on. With our ineligibility, we are very limited in what we can go to them for, but one of the items is planning, and planning actually has a separate budget from the rest of the CDBG money. So they put so much aside just for that. So what we will do is next week, as we normally do, we will hold a public hearing just if the public has any, ideas as to what we can do. But as I said, we're very limited. My recommendation is that we do what we've done in the past as one project, which is an updating of the comp plan and the zoning. What we do is we split those and make one the primary, which I would say the comp plan, and make the zoning the secondary, and go for those, because as I said, there's separate money just for those, and I think you have a very good chance of getting one, if not both, just because both of your plans are so old, you've always put those in there, and you're not eligible for any other CDBG money right now. So, but next week, we would hold a public hearing during the regular meeting where we would just allow for public input, so.
When is the application due?
January 9th or 10th.
So you're looking for, you don't want to wait till the January 6th meeting for a final, you want to vote on this in December, is that what you're saying?
No, this would just be for the public hearing. So that's what, yeah. But as I said, it's very limited in what we can do, and I think that's probably all we'd be able to go for this year. But like I said, saying that, I think we have a very good chance of being funded for one, if not both of those, which the borough is in great need to have both of those updated.
Well, I was actually going to suggest the same thing, even though I'm not going to be voting on this by that point, but for slightly different reasons. But on the merits, I think we should, and strategically, I think, we've gotten bricks and mortar money for 2 years in a row, and, even if the eligibility issue is not there, I think this would be and also given that these plans are already quite obsolete and now are another year out of date, I concur on those grounds with Mr. Poole's suggestion. I have a question for Mr. Ewald, unless there's other comments on the suggested projects. Hearing none. This finding of non-eligibility, I would think due process would require some sort of appeal process be available to us.
Have we gotten any official notice, or have we just heard this down the line?
No, I mean, I did just this week reach out to the county just to make sure, because that's what they've told us, but I do have in writing, just in emails, right, we have fallen outside,
Yeah, but without official notice, there's further grounds for appeal, I would think. Frankly, I have a hard time blindly trusting that OHCD is doing this correctly, with all due respect. Because we were burned for many years before, with non-eligibility on.
What basis would we challenge it? We have a better census count?
I just don't know that, I don't know what census count they could be using. I'm guessing that they're using some projected data and not actual count data. And perhaps it is hard and fast with what the federal government supplies, but I'd just like to know. I mean, but when I just think basic professionalism requires, when you're making a change of this magnitude that's affecting your client, basically being a municipality, when you're a county agency, we should have been notified in a formal letter the finding and the reasons for the finding, and it doesn't sound like that ever happened.
So you want to submit a letter to them to provide that?
Well, I would like for Mr. Ewald to find out whether there is an appeal process first, and then make a decision on what communication might be recommended.
I have something to say about this. I was working on something a few years ago, and it's very vague to me, but I remember looking at a map, I think like that kind of a map. What map?
That is-
That's what it
That
is.
is the map.
I mean,
And I
that's the
remember
map,
looking
right.
at the map and wondering, knowing the town as well as I do, it didn't seem to make sense based on economic zones. So I called somebody to ask them about it for some reason. I think probably I was putting stuff on the web page or something. Anyway, the person I talked to said they basically had a sort of general approach to it all, where they just basically do it in big chunks or something like that.
Well, that was
And
based on
I
the
would-
census tracts.
I
I mean,
would-
there
yes.
is
Yeah, but-
some kind of science behind
Yeah,
it.
I would,
supposedly, right?
I
It's
would
not
like to, if I was thinking about bringing suit, one thing I would think about is bringing suit to find out if the process is working. Because that's what Mario's bringing us, he doesn't know for sure it's working. As opposed to whatever, I guess you would still get to that point, but anyway.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion for Mr. Ewald to proceed to find out,
Do we need a motion, or
can we
I can
just
look into
leave it
that.
at that?
No, I think it's a.
Mr. Ewald will just report back to us next week, but I'll just close by saying, and with all due respect to all my friends in Ridley Park and their lovely fountain in the middle of Ridley Park Lake, I would be interested to know whether that census tract of Ridley Park is still eligible, because if they're eligible, there is no way that Morton is not eligible. There, I've said my piece, so.
Thank you.
Mr. McGrath, anything else?
Thank you. That's very good that you brought that up, because that's going to hopefully turn into something. On the related issue, though, we are having a census next year, and we'll have to remember that council should do some activity. We should be active in encouraging people to take advantage of the census, to do the census, so that we can get the numbers as close as we can. Obviously, those kind of sorts of things have an effect on it too. Who doesn't do it, and who does? So anyway, the most complete census would be the most, and next year is the year. So okay, and that's number 2. Number 1.1. I have one more thing to say, and that is that we won't be doing an official holiday tree lighting this year for a couple of reasons. One reason is that we have a scheduled use of the hall, and we decided, considering the type of event it is, that it might get a little bit confusing. And the other, well, that's about it. That's pretty much the biggest reason. The other thing, though, is that we will be lighting the tree anyway. We just won't be decorating it, unless somebody from the borough
Or the community.
or the community offers to come and decorate the tree. We have all the stuff. So anybody wants to come by and decorate the tree, it's fine with us. But I personally won't be doing it this year. So that's it, I believe, for now. Thank you very much.
I just have one other thing on the census, that the conversation reminded me that I got this from office of Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, and I'm not sure if we got in the office too, about a training they're doing for what they're calling Census Civic Engagement Champions, which is to address exactly the issues that we're talking about with educating our residents on why it's so important to to fully and honestly participate in the census project for the well-being of their community. So they are suggesting that this is typically an elected official or designated officer who has the tools to educate their community about the census and its impact on our county. And the training is on December 18th, and it's a 90-minute session at 2 p.m. I think this is a Wednesday at Penn State Brandywine. So I think we should send somebody that. And would anybody have particular interest in, anybody from council have particular interest in participating in that?
I would, but I can't make it. Hopefully they'll do a video of it or something.
Any interest? No. Mayor? No. All right.
Well,
maybe I'll do it, but
since you reopened my...
my duties are going to be unofficial come January 6th.
Oh, yeah, you'll be great sitting out there. Some hard time, excuse me. But anyway, and actually you would be. Anyway, I just wanted to go back. I just remembered that the mayor recently brought up the idea of doing a Christmas Carol thing, which I'm sure he's going to.
Talked about for next year. That was for next year's budget.
No, I thought he just brought that up. Didn't you bring that up?
Does it cost money to go Christmas caroling now?
No, did you? No.
I just invited our committee if they would like to go Christmas caroling.
For this year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I was just saying
Let me
that
know when. I would be
the
happy to.
thought occurred to me that if you were to do something like that, you might want to consider the Christmas tree lighting or something as part of it. That's all I was going to say. So it's up to you to do what you want to do. Anyways, I mean,
Well, that has to
say
be,
holiday, I'm
organized
sorry.
and told to the public and time set.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a matter of just doing it, and we can't do it this weekend because of the use of the hall.
yeah, so I'm just pointing that out, that's all, whatever, all that other stuff would have to be done. Okay, now I think, anybody else? Okay, that's it for me, thanks.
All right, thank you. Public health, sanitation, and recycling. Mrs. Roberts, please.
Yes, good evening. I'd just like to report tonight just in regards to the yard waste that was done on November the 23rd, that the tonnage was given and it was recorded at 0.65 tons, which equates to about 2.5 cubic yards. So for comparison from last year, the yard waste was collected, it was 5 cubic yards. So we know that we have some goals that we have to work on in regards to yard waste. We have to, as a committee, we have to schedule our dates. So those are things that the coming year, that as we prepare for the yard waste in April, and as we prepare for the yard waste again in November, that we have to schedule our dates accordingly so that we give the hauler time and we give the residents enough notification. So those are just some of the things going forward next year that we will work on.
If I can make a comment, I put 3 flyers out in front of my house, 2 on my side of the street, 1 across the street, that were missing after a few days. Don't know why, I put these things up, I staple them, I go take them down when the event's over, but they were not up, I don't know how long they were actually missing, but if anybody did or didn't put them out, how many people did or didn't see it. It's kind of an odd thing, but yeah, the sooner that we know the dates so we can get the word out and to put them up on the power poles or whatever for people to know about it. And of course, we can put it on all our social media.
Right.
Well, hopefully they're all recycled.
Hopefully they work.
Once again, it's a lesson learned, it's a service provided, and as I stated, I know that residents put out this type of trash on a normal trash day. This is just something that we try to do as an incentive every year because it's something that the hauler provides for us as a service.
Shelley, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I know you started the program, and thank you so much for doing that. Several of the residents have asked me, is it possible instead of having to pack up the leaves, to put it at the curbside and be vacuumed up?
No.
No.
I didn't know if we
I know that that was something that we didn't look into, but I know the expense to that.
Well, but they're trash trucks, so the idea is,
It was
right,
cost
they don't have
prohibitive.
the equipment to
Equipment to
right.
do it.
All right.
And I mean, I don't know if it's something that we could even check with Springfield, that possibly could be some type of shared thing. I mean, it's something that we could possibly look into, just to at least get some information.
It might be a good thing to look into and see if
Yes.
Springfield would be able to do a loan project. Because I think there would be a lot of interest in people putting
Yes,
curbside.
because it has been said that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank you.
That's one thing we've been longing for a long time.
It wouldn't work on Morton Avenue. Cars go too fast.
Would slow it down.
Yes, it would. Okay.
Would slow
Anything
down.
else?
No, unless anybody else has anything else, but that's it.
Well, I just want to say, technically, in Springfield, we're supposed to put them at the curb, not on the curb. I mean, not the street.
Right, at the curb.
Actually, you're supposed to keep them at the edge of your property, so it should be on the other side of your sidewalk.
Oh.
Thank
Great.
you, Mr. Poole.
That makes sense.
All right, does anyone have anything on law and ordinance?
I do. Mrs. Preston, you kindly gave me, and I don't know who else, this envelope that has the 2019 updates for the ordinance books. Wasn't there one from the previous year?
Yep.
Where is it?
It's in my office.
Well, don't we need that one before we put this one in?
You should have both.
Oh,
I put them there so that you know you do have them. I
Huh?
put them out there last year too, and no one took them, so I
Well,
put
no,
them
but I'm
back.
just saying, looking at these are all dated September 19, 2019.
Correct.
So I need, when I leave, to get 18.
They're in there.
Well, how many copies do they give
I
us?
know, but,
I give you one for each council.
For each,
A couple for the
So-
office.
For each book?
so what I want to explain is, so we need to have, I have a hardbound book, I have the hard one at home. So I'm going to get the 18, put those in, then go back and put these in, because they may
And you
probably.
must do it in that order. Do
Yeah,
18
exactly.
first
This is
and
what,
then-
this is part of a job I had for many years of keeping a library in order. So I just wanted to let council know, if you did not get 18, to get 18, and this is 19. And if anybody has a copy of the book at home, take it home, let Marty know. And were you going to look about getting some binders for the other ones? I sent you an email about that.
Everybody had a binder at one time. I don't have
I
any.
never had a bound law. I am absolutely sure I never had a
Well,
bound
No,
law in
my
car.
understanding is we have unbound.
Not
When I
since
first-
anybody stole it.
No, when I first came, that's what
Yeah,
it, that was
packets.
the first, right, and everybody got a binder, I mean, that's why, like you said, that's why we get these packets, because they're, you can fill in those.
But it never,
No,
this under here.
These binders.
It never went home. It
These
definitely never
binders
went
are
home.
from the previous
That's the
company
old one.
that
That's the
put
old
them
one,
in.
right.
That's the
As
old
I
one?
recall,
He stayed.
we had more packets than binders at the time. I don't know what happened since then, but when we got them, I remember, I think I had some.
It doesn't matter. Let's just order some binders from.
Right, and I
wherever
sent that
we-
information to Marty about what WB Mason has.
And
They're
I will not need
about
this.
20 bucks a piece.
I keyword search everything online anyway, so I will leave this for the benefit of Mr. Boylan and my successors.
Do you use the app?
Spend the money before the end of the
Do you
year.
use the app?
No, I do it on the web, but
I was looking up things the other day, just for so everybody to know, there is an app for you can go to where our ordinances are online, and you can find out about getting an app for this, so you can actually, which apparently is more user-friendly, so if anybody's interested.
all right. Anything else on law and ordinance?
Nope.
Mr. Ewald, anything?
No.
Parks and Recreation, Mayor App, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met on Monday night for over 2 hours. We had a really good discussion on all of our plans for the upcoming year. As a group, we did come to a consensus going forward with our plans, which we will bring to council for a vote at some point. First thing we decided we would like to do some corrective measures on the ball field at Jacobs Park. It seemed to be something the community wants so that they can use the field for athletics. We also decided not to do the upper level parking and decided to do the lower level parking area with 17 additional spaces down on Harding Avenue. We also decided not to do the community gardens at Jacobs Park because we have some private interest with the church and a businessman that's willing to donate property for community gardens. And so our priority there at Jacobs Park would become the dog park that we would like to put there. And so the additional parking would be for the people using the dog park and also for the people that want to use the beautiful field once we get that done. We had some other things we'd like to do, which in the lower park we'd like to at some point put a stage there and also purchase a shed for Jacobs Park to house some equipment. And we'd like to buy, maybe possibly buy some pickleball equipment for our gymnasium here. So those are some of the things that we looked at. Of course, all these come with a price tag. And so the budget that we put forward for 2020 for Parks and Recreation was $10,500. That would not pay for all that stuff. As you can see, that just the parking lot itself would be, the 17 spaces would be $15,000, just an estimate. So we do have some money that I had asked council before, and we'll bring that up at another meeting. Is that right, Bob? That'll be brought up at another meeting. Maybe that's $7,700 if we can get that moved to the 2020 budget.
I thought
Well,
that was,
it'll be to put it into the Park and Rec bank account, right?
Okay.
and there's already, I thought there was, I thought it was going to bring it to a total of 24,000.
Yeah, we have a special account also. So combined, there's 24,332 available now, and then the budget for 2020 is 10.5. So altogether, that would be 34,832. But as you can see, just the parking lot itself would be $16,000. So, and Mr. Lillycraft had brought up, well, we can't keep carrying money over and over, and I agree. So this coming year in 2020, if we weren't to use that money, we would put it back into the general fund, not the special account, but the budgeted amounts. So that's our plans going forward. Upcoming events that we have are, I brought up this idea I had of the Great Leap Year Cake Contest and Sale, which would be held on Leap Year Day, February 29th. We'll ask the community to bake cakes. We'll have a cake sale, and we can also have a cake contest where I'm going to invite the owners of the different bakeries in the area to come in and be the judges. And so the cakes are sold, and the money would come to the borough. So that's an idea I have. I'm going to try to talk to the different church groups and community people and see if we can have that on Saturday, February 29th, Leap Day. So that's the Great Leap Year Cake Contest and Sale. So that's that I came up with, hoping that we can do something other than just athletics for the community. Also going forward, we continue to work on our grant, which is on schedule according to the engineer, which included the tot lot, the T-ball field, and Sycamore Woods. The turkey trot was held on November 28th, and if you remember, the night before was very windy, and I had to go get out of bed at midnight, come up and take my tent down that I had put up because we were afraid it was going to blow across the street or something. But we were able to put that back up the next morning. But we did have 30 brave people came out at 7:30 that morning, and we had 26 walkers and runners. So we had a good time. We had a lot of treats, hot chocolate, coffee. We had treats, edible stuff, and we gave out awards and prizes. So everyone had a good time. And that was our 4th annual turkey trot. The Morton 5K will be held on June 6th. And we will start the planning for that late in February 2020. And lastly is the backboard that I never did get replaced on the upper court there at Jacobs Park. We'll try to do that in the springtime, purchase the backboard, and we'll have to see how we're going to put that up. So that's real quickly what we discussed in 2 hours, and I just wanted to bring that forward to everyone going forward. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you. Planning, so we have a pending application, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Ewald to explain what we need to do with that.
So we have a deadline the middle of February to make a decision on, or I'm sorry, the middle of January to make a decision on this application. The alternate engineer is conducting a review. You should have a review letter on that by next meeting, which will be, next week. And then hopefully, since the review letter is not coming out until next week, we'll probably have to consider this in January at your regular meeting, and have the applicant come in and present, and hopefully he'll have addressed any issues in the engineer's review letter at that time. You did receive comments and recommendations from the Delaware County Planning Commission on that.
Yeah, Chairman of the Planning Commission, we just received the comments from the county. I did as of yesterday. And among other things, they also want him to correct the plan on stormwater, and they want handicap parking, and they are now requiring bicycle parking, and they have additional landscaping that they're recommending. And I'm waiting to get a copy of Ridley Township's Planning Commission decision to see if there's anything on there that they would say our plan would have ill effect on them. We had expressed to the applicant at the meeting, to particularly in concerns of council pertaining to stormwater and the County Planning Commission to update his plan, correct it in accordance with the information that we gave to him at the meeting. And we also mentioned about parking and landscaping and grease trap. Now, we haven't received any of that. I had received information or communication from Mr. Ewald that were on the gun, present a recommendation, and it's been my, status over 20 years. I can't put a recommendation together until all of these reports and so forth are in from everybody. And the reason for that, now here we're looking at bicycle parking. I don't know, it always ends up, we have to enforce these things. We have to put them on the plan, and it can't have, 4 or 5 different reports coming in at different times for the and then ask the code enforcement officer to somehow follow all this. So we try to wait till everything's in, and if it's going to push up against the time element when it has to be approved, then that's just the way it's going to have to be. That's all I can tell you.
Do we know who the known applicant is? Do you know the name to us?
I can't remember.
It's Inland Designs. The applicant is Evan Pellegrino. He's the owner of the company. For 24
The engineer for the applicant, I think, was maybe a little inexperienced. He didn't, in a timely basis, apply to PennDOT and DEP, and that might, I don't know when they'll get that. Likewise, the county. And so here we are, and, to present any kind of a report at this point in time, just with, subject to 25 conditions is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, this was already subject to a zoning hearing board decision, correct, Mr. Ewald?
Correct.
And zoning hearing also requires stormwater.
All right. So, do we need any further discussion on that, or is everyone clear? What the approach is on that? All right. No zoning applications.
Not yet. One's in the works, but hasn't gotten to me yet.
Any old business from members of council? New business from members of council?
We have a comment on
Chief
the
Spina, yes.
Thank you. Just want to say I was selected for the Delco transition team for public safety, and I'll be attending the first meeting tomorrow, working with county council. Also, Sergeant Rossi will let you know we're going to swear a new police officer next week.
Okay.
Bill, can you explain to them how we selected our officer?
We recruited him from another town, and he's going to be a part-time officer with us. He already has some experience, and but we feel he's a very good candidate for the job. And we're anticipating 2 more people leaving, probably by the end of December and maybe latest January.
So we kind of did what everybody does with us, cherry picked. We took an officer with some experience and we're going to utilize that and take advantage of it. He's Jenkintown. Is that?
Yes.
Well, these officers, you had said you thought you had a group pretty well set up. They're not the same ones for a part-time.
Right now, yeah, we're trying to build up because we're losing. We lost 3 this year. We were built.
But the
and
other
then we
2
lost.
that are going, you've already had them figured? You still
Well,
have
we
the
just
same
found out
ones?
about, we just found out about them this week.
Pretty good, group of 10, right?
That's a new 2 that we just found out are
On top of what we lost.
correct, unfortunately. I won't be available for the budget. I know the police department is an issue in that budget. I'm going to ask Sergeant Rodney to attend Monday night, and I'll have information supplied to him and the mayor to answer any of your questions.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
What does that entail?
I was working with county council on transitioning a lot of the topics, the 911 center, the animal controls. We're going to find out more tomorrow. It'll be my first meeting.
Very good. Congratulations.
Happy New Year.
Anything on central planning?
I'll bring that up.
Good.
Okay, anyone wish to address council for open discussion? Mr. Lee.
Michael Lee, 123 West Sylvan Avenue, Morton, Pennsylvania. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I attended the November 21st, 2019 meeting of the Springfield School District Board of School Directors. And with permission, I would like to approach the dais and pass down copies of the agenda for everyone.
Certainly, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Littlecraft, if you'll be so good to pass them down. The main point that came out of that was that the St. Paul Elementary School was recognized as being a National Blue Ribbon School for the year 2019. Our outgoing school board director, Mr. Christopher DeSantis, was placed on the honor roll by the Pennsylvania School Board Association for his 12 years of service. And the main budget item that you can see in there, an air conditioning feasibility study, is going to be done for E.T. Richardson Middle School and Scenic Hills Elementary School, which I think is a good idea with incidents, high rates today of breathing disorders such as asthma and bronchitis, more so than when I was in school. So I think that's a good idea. And I want to remind everyone that tomorrow night, December 5th, is the school board meeting and reorganization meeting where our new school board member-elect, Mrs. Jacqueline Guy, is going to be sworn in tomorrow night.
Is that at 7 o'clock?
Yes, Mrs. Miller. The meeting starts at 7. The last couple meetings have been starting a minute or two late, but they're supposed to start at 7. And I don't know when Mrs. Guy, how long it's going to take, because each individual school board director, they're sworn in one at a time. And I think there's going to be 5 tomorrow night besides Mrs. Guy. I believe there's going to be 4 that are returning for new terms. But the meeting does start at 7, and God willing, I will be there. I do have one concern. Last Friday on my street, I don't know if it was just my street or if all of Morton, but the point I'm getting to is that none of the recyclables were collected on my street. I don't know if that affected everyone on Morton or if it was just my street, but I'm interested as to know what happened.
That was the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Recyclables were collected.
Not on my street.
Okay, so your street probably was overlooked, but they were out. They did come later than usual. They weren't early. That was one thing I did notice.
Okay.
So I will.
I received no phone calls, but they did come back later and pick it up Monday,
Well,
but nobody called.
well,
Well, you weren't, well, the borough wasn't open on Friday.
But
Right.
But-
Monday morning I would have gotten calls. I got no calls.
There was no messages.
No messages.
Okay.
Okay.
So when something like that happens, you are
Why?
that's instructed to call the borough so that they can reach out to the haulers.
Miss, well, I hold myself in remission on that one. I just had too much happening on the Monday, so I just didn't get around to it. And I figured since I'll be attending the meeting tonight, I could bring that up.
But they were out, but it was later than usual.
Okay, I was just wondering. I was just wondering what happened. I didn't know whether they gave their employees the day off, or equipment failure, or if nobody, or if they decided to take the day off.
Right.
I can assure you that happened many a time over the years when I worked for the post office, that many a person just decided to extend the holiday. Okay, so unless anybody has any quick question for me, I'll resume my seat.
I just have a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. DeSantis for donating his time for so many years. They don't get paid to do this or anything like that, and he stepped up and represented the town all those years. And the second thing is, I'd like to know, since you're being retired from representing as the unofficial representative of the school board now. Matter of fact, Mrs. DeSantis just now texted me, and said she's going to be here next week. So I'm just wondering what your plans are for the future.
I'll just take my seat in the audience. If I have anything to say, I'll approach the dais.
There you go.
If not, I'll just be quiet.
Okay. Well, thank you for your work.
I do have one more thing. Because I almost forgot. I do want to express my appreciation to Mrs. Young for her 2 years of service. And I wish her well in her future endeavors. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. Good night. May God bless all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us about the meeting tomorrow. The school board meeting, I will be there, and hopefully we'll have a good showing from the borough.
Mario, I have an announcement to make if it's good.
Yeah, let me just say, is there anybody else for open discussion? If not, the mayor has an announcement.
Okay, so first I have a request, and the request is at next week's meeting, Mario must wear his black hat, top hat. And I would request that he does that, and I do want to inform everyone that we will be having a reception before next week's meeting.
After the meeting.
Actually before the meeting, and after also, we'll have a reception starting at 6:30, because there are several people that want to present awards to Mario for his service to the community.
After the meeting.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we will have some refreshments here before and after the meeting, and we should have a good time wishing Mario everything good in the future.
Correction, central booking.
Mayor, may I make a suggestion that we actually do it during the meeting? We're swearing in a police officer next week, right?
That's correct.
Can we just do it at the beginning of the meeting, and then it'll be on TV and stuff?
We will have a lot, some of the people who will be here can't stay for the meeting, so they need to make their presentations and then leave. But, you know, we can play it by ear, because this is Mario's last meeting.
The meetings are at 7 o'clock. Having things early, we have to let people know, we actually have to let the public know. So on and so forth.
It's just a reception, so we will have some coffee and things here.
Well,
And the meeting will be at the same time.
I appreciate it, and I will be here whenever I'm needed. Perhaps we'll bring the hat and wear it for sure.
I think you have, that was
My mother hates when I wear that hat indoors, drives her crazy.
That's the reason to wear it. We're going to talk about that over the next few months.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you. Right. So we will not adjourn the meeting just yet. We have a brief executive session on a personnel matter, and then we will come back and complete the meeting. I don't expect this to take long. Please bear with us for a few minutes. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Mr. Ewald, do you want to explain the item on the table?
So there's one item that council's going to consider, and that's the advertisement of the fire marshal position. It's a 2-year term. The current term is expired, so it's as a normal course of business, the Borough Council we'd be looking for a motion to authorize the manager's office to advertise the position of fire marshal for resumes, and the council would like to consider including in that application requirement that any person responding must be able to respond to an incident in the borough but within 30 minutes. So you'd be looking for a motion to that effect.
Is someone prepared to make that motion?
I make a motion.
Someone makes a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Voice vote. All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? All right, that motion carries. Is there any other business? No. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, for the penultimate time, meeting adjourned.